In August of 2007, a bridge carrying 8 lanes of interstate over the Mississippi River came down in about 4 seconds. 1,000 feet of the deck truss went, and the main span fell 108 feet into the river. The board traced it to a steel plate at a joint called U10, a plate that was half an inch thick, when the load it carried needed about an inch. That bridge opened in 1967, so it stood for 40 years, inspected the whole time with that plate in it. You would expect the answer to be that nobody looked. It is not. Here is what an inspector told investigators afterwards. He had seen the plates bowing. He asked another inspector about it, and this is why it never appeared in a report. The inspections were built to find things that get worse. This never got worse. It was wrong from the day it was drawn. Start with the afternoon. On the 1st of August, 4 of the bridge's 8 lanes were closed for resurfacing. Construction equipment and aggregate, sand and gravel for a concrete pour, were delivered and parked in the 2 closed inside lanes and were in place by 2:30. The delivered weights were documented. 184,000 pounds of gravel, 198,000 of sand. With the vehicles, equipment, and crew, about 578,000 pounds, standing over one side of the center span just north of Pier 6. The concrete pour was due to begin at 7 in the evening. At about 6:05, a surveillance camera at the lock and dam just west of the bridge recorded part of what happened. The center span separated from the rest of the bridge and went into the water. 111 vehicles were on the part that fell. 17 were recovered from the river. 13 people did not survive. 145 were injured. The deck truss broke in 2 places, north and south of the center. Investigators labeled them the north and south fracture areas. Between those 2 points, the truss had simply stopped being a truss. The members were still there. The joints were not. To see what failed, you have to know what a gusset plate does. A truss bridge is a frame of straight steel members arranged in triangles. Some are always in tension, some always in compression. Where those members meet, they do not touch each other. They are all riveted to a flat steel plate that spans the joint. That plate is the gusset, which means the plate is not a bracket. It is the joint. Everything the members carry passes through it. After the collapse, investigators found the truss had come apart at the nodes where those plates were. The plates at the U10 nodes were half an inch thick. Analysis for the board found they needed to be about an inch to have acceptable capacity. And they were not the only ones. Other main truss gusset plates were also found to have insufficient load capacity. The next question is when it became too weak. The board modeled the same plate 3 times, at the bridge's opening in 67, after the deck was thickened in 77 and 98, and on the day itself. Red is steel past its yield stress, metal that is deforming and not coming back. There is red in the first panel, the one from 1967. The board states it directly. Not after the renovations, not after the traffic grew, as designed. The 1977 and 98 work added deck thickness and changed the barriers. In the model, the areas of yielding simply expanded, which means the bridge spent 4 decades slowly using up a margin it never had in the first place. On the day, the board worked out how much load the main truss members around that joint were actually carrying, as a fraction of what they were designed for. The traffic that afternoon was ordinary. What was not ordinary was 500,000 pounds of construction material parked over one point of it. So how does a plate get designed at half the thickness it needs? The board's answer is in the probable cause, and it is unusually blunt. Inadequate load capacity, due to a design error, of the gusset plates at the U10 nodes. And then what contributed to the design error? Read that again. Not a calculation that came out wrong, a calculation that was never performed, and a review that did not catch that it was missing. Which brings us back to the 40 years. The plates had been bowing. Photographs taken in 1999 and again in 2003 show visible bowing in all 4 plates at the U10 nodes. After the collapse, the board measured the bowing from those photographs, up to about an inch out of plane. Neither of the studies that took those photographs made note of it, and the state's inspection records show it had never been noted either. There is a reason it had nowhere to go. Bridges in that state were inspected against a manual of 150 separate elements. Gusset plates were not one of them. There was no line on the form for the thing that was holding the bridge up. And yet someone had noticed. The district's bridge inspection engineer, a specialist in exactly this kind of inspection, had seen the bowing since 1997. He checked it with a colleague, and they reached a conclusion. His reasoning was ordinary, and it was taut. Gusset plates are overdesigned. The safety factors in them are 2 to 3 times the load, and the joints showed nothing else wrong. No peeling paint, no elongated rivet holes, no cracking at the welds, no crushing of the deck above it. Every one of those checks is a check for deterioration. He ran them, and they all passed because nothing was deteriorating. The board made that a contributing factor to the accident itself, and it named the practice rather than the person, excluded from load ratings. Every time that bridge was rated for how much it could carry, the plates that were actually holding it together were not in the arithmetic. There is one more thing worth clearing up, because it was repeated a great deal afterwards. Bridges are given a condition rating from 9 down to 0 and a status that comes out of it. One of those statuses is structurally deficient. It sounds like a warning that a bridge is unsafe. The report is explicit that it is not that. The examples the report gives are corrosion eating into steel members, substructures moving, concrete decks cracking, deterioration again. So the rating system and the inspection system were measuring the same thing as each other, and neither of them was measuring this. The board listed what it wanted changed: quality control at bridge design firms, and how federal and state agencies review the calculations that come with a design, guidance for putting construction loads on a bridge while it is still carrying traffic, inspection guidance for gusset plate distortion, and an end to leaving gusset plates out of load ratings. A word about what this document is. The board determines probable cause. It does not assign fault or liability, and no individual is named here. We have made 6 of these. A ship went over because a man typed a wrong number, one because the number in the book was wrong. A boat sank because a warning was written and declined. A pipeline burst because the record described a pipe that was never in the ground. A walkway came down because a change was approved and never recalculated. This one is different again. Nothing here was hidden. The plates were in the drawings in the photographs and in front of a qualified inspector who looked at them and reached a reasonable conclusion. A bridge can be checked for 40 years by people doing their jobs correctly and still be checked for the wrong thing.